Hello, everyone around the world, and a very warm welcome to Raising the Pulse for Sustainable Lifestyles in 2025. We're delighted to have you joining us for the next hour and a half, where we'll be hearing from experts and leaders all around the world on how we raise the pulse for the right reasons. Let me give you a few housekeeping tips. If we can go to the next slide. You will see that interpretation is available in French, Spanish, and Arabic for you. You can activate this on your Zoom screen by going to More, selecting Interpretation, and choosing the language you would like to listen to. And our wonderful interpreters are waiting for you there. If not, there are closed captions available also via the Zoom screen with activating the captions button at the bottom of your screen. So we hope that makes it easier for you to follow the conversation. Our speakers will try to speak clearly and slowly to enable an exchange in all of the languages we are speaking around the world today. A few ground rules for you as well. This session is being recorded, so we are on the record. We would love you to share your thoughts. And so on the next slide, I'm going to show a QR code. Grab your phones, because this will enable you to answer in this session 3 questions. We'll be asking you about what you think the most important approaches to sustainable lifestyles will be in 2025, how governments and businesses are responding to the needs of consumers. And then there's a free text space where you can share questions or comments, and we'll be gathering those for the speakers as well. So thank you very much for participating here with us. And so I am thrilled to open the conversation here today. You, I hope, know by now that Consumers International is a global network, 200 consumer organizations around the world, which are trusted and listening to consumers in their countries every single day in 115 countries and counting. Every year, our members pick a theme for World Consumer Rights Day, which takes place on March 15th. The theme for 2025 is a just transition for sustainable lifestyles, a very timely and urgent call to action. Why? Because we've crashed through 7 out of 9 of the planetary boundaries we all share. We need a transition that is fast, fair, and accountable. And we heard in the opening session that 40 to 70% of the solutions to reaching emissions targets are in demand. The demand for us means consumers and how we're able to act as individuals in the economy. Every time we have heard a statistic during this week, it has been that a vast majority of us, we think 94% around the world, want a cleaner, greener economy. The problem is that it is difficult for us to do so. The system isn't set up for that, and we face affordability or accessibility challenges. It is not yet simple and easy. The financing is not yet in place. But what's been great over the past week is that from a consumer lens, with over 100 speakers from 40 countries and more, and with 100 members ready to start World Consumer Rights Day, we've heard across food and agriculture, across energy, across finance, transport, plastics, you name it, how we might be able to unlock that change. That is in not just awareness, making sure people have the right information in the right way, not assuming you are starting from green, but from where we are as individuals. It's not just that, though. It's not just about the information. It's also about how we use technology, how we create collective intelligence, how we create tools for consumers to use. It's about how the money flows, how we build different types of business models and create a tipping point. It's about raising our voice as consumers and building community efforts, for example, between farmers and consumers. And it's about looking under the hood and changing some of the policies and standards and making sure those are fit for the future, fit for the consumer rights we need for a sustainable lifestyle for us all. Now, progress is never in a straight line, we know. So this is not also a simple and easy path that we're on, but it is well worth it. In fact, it's essential. And so we're here to look at how we make progress now in 2025. How do we navigate the year, and how do we land together in a cleaner, fair, safe, and sustainable economy? It's my great pleasure to open and ask the Honourable Minister, Joyelle Clarke from St Kitts and Nevis, to share with us her perspective, especially in light of her role as a rapporteur to the United Nations Environment Assembly, the importance of the 2024 resolution, which all countries signed into, about sustainable lifestyles. And I would love your perspective, Minister, on how we might make progress and how consumer advocates and consumers can lean into that change. Minister, the floor is yours.
Greetings, and thank you so much for this opportunity to share my perspective, not only as the rapporteur for 7 bureau for the bureau, but also from a small island developing stage. For us, consumption, it's an essential undercurrent that has really connected humans for generations. And it's ingrained in our nature to invest time and resources into pursuing the goods and services that will enhance our survival. Of course, with evolution and development, it offers us personal fulfillment, pleasure, and a greater sense of convenience. However, we know what overconsumption and consumerism has resulted in for humans and for planet Earth. And if we trace the origins of cycles and demand and supply and production and consumption, we will find humble beginnings, collective needs being satisfied to continue our existence. However, we believe that it's this age of unfettered advancement where technology, industry, invention beget themselves by the hour, and access has become as simple as 3 clicks and a 2-step authentication that has resulted in the insatiable sense of consumerism that prioritizes satisfaction to the detriment of utility. So now we have to consider conscious consumption as an ideal or an aspiration instead of what it is, quite possible and a quite regular practice. So when we speak of sustainability, we ought not to speak of it as if we're grasping in the ether, as though it's devoid of human action or interaction, but really that it requires human action for us to consume sustainably. So for us, we do believe that we have to address challenges like strained waste management systems, high import costs, reduced protections and quality control, environmental degradation, plastic pollution, and the overall worsening of the climate crisis, and see them as significant drops in the bucket of what unsustainable lifestyles translate for us as consumers, for us as living, breathing individuals. So I'm very happy that we're gathering under the theme of a just transition to sustainable lifestyles. But for us as islanders, it's almost like a retransition, a tracing of our origins of consumption. Because for our lived experience, we are ripe with instances of sustainable lifestyles where it's in our fiber, it's ingrained in our livelihoods, and our elders, even though they weren't very technical in their perspective, when they said, waste not, want not, we have a propensity to reduce, reuse, upcycle everything from our shopping bags, the jars, our containers, and a readiness to conserve our environment, whether it's in the way we fish, the way we farm, the way we take only what's needed and share what we have. These are organic actions that we can retrace and we can reinvent and transition to in terms of sustainable livelihoods. So when we frame it this way, our path forward always encompasses some amount of going back to what was simple, what was taking only what you need, and ensuring that we protect the environment. And this is a key outcome for expectations for UNEA 7, especially as we reflect on our theme, advancing sustainable solutions for a resilient planet. Sustainable solutions mean we have to look at every aspect of living here on planet Earth, including how we consume and how we dispose of our resources. So for St. Kitts and Nevis, we recognize, as I close my comments, we recognize that if we were to achieve the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, we had to take a very holistic look at what was happening in every sector. And we presented the Sustainable Island State Agenda, which has a critical component of circular economy, looking at recycling, consumption patterns, and behavior around waste and waste management. We do believe that even though we cannot escape consuming, if we govern ourselves and direct realities under the understanding that this planet and its resources that we as humankind have been blessed with are not materials to be quantified and squandered and used and consumed, but gifts bestowed on us to be appreciated, preserved, and experienced, then we will be on that path to sustainability and resilience. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for those beautiful remarks and for setting the framework of a retransition. I wonder if I might, and perhaps you can answer this now or later on, as you look at the global network of consumer advocates and organizations around the world, how would you like them, and many of them are listening on the call here today and will be working hard tomorrow and in the months to come, what can they best do to support this retransition?
Certainly, I can take a go at this question now, but would also love to weigh in after hearing other comments. But it's all about global partnership and recognizing that, especially for small island developing states, where we are not manufacturers but importers of products, that there needs to be a little bit more partnership in terms of reducing, reusing, and ensuring that goods that are made that at the production point, that it's more conscious in the production, that when we get here to our small islands, when we just don't have the space to dispose of so much waste, that we're more conscious of what the challenges that small island developing states have to face in importing so much goods that eventually become waste. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. And I would love to give a shout out at this point. We literally have the whole world represented and on the line. And it's wonderful to see our members joining from Myanmar to Sudan to Kenya over to Argentina, to name just but a few. We are thrilled to have you with us. So with that, I would love to pass to Adriana Zacharias. Adriana is the Global Coordinator for Financial and Economic Transitions at the UN Environment Programme. And Adriana has been a partner with us in shaping this week, in thinking through the role in particular of consumer information, but thinking much broader than that about sustainable lifestyles. Adriana, as you look to 2025 and you think, and you know about the capabilities of consumer advocates, what we need to do in terms of sustainable consumption, how do you see, what are the opportunities we face, and when are the key milestones we should be aware of?
Thank you so much, Helena. And allow me first really to thank Consumers International and to you particularly for the long-standing partnership with UNEP and the OPN, the One Planet Network, that you are leading the global program on consumer information. And just really to say, for me today, we have a double celebration. We are celebrating Consumers' Rights Day, but I want to acknowledge and really thank you because you have put the theme towards a just transition to sustainable lifestyles. And why? Because you are already advancing our agenda for 2025. Last year, India put forward a UNEA resolution on sustainable lifestyles. It was endorsed by all member states. And thanks to you, that's why, thanks to this resolution, this is the theme that we are celebrating today. And that's why, for me, that's a double celebration. So just to say, you are helping us already in implementing this and in preparing the roadmap for UNEA 7. Now, if you ask me, why do we care about sustainable lifestyles? Why is this important? And what are the challenges ahead? Science doesn't lie. We know and we have evidence that our consumption and the demand side is responsible for 40 to 70% of the impacts in climate, is responsible also for around 50 to 80% of the nature footprint, mainly land use, water, etc. So therefore, it's important then to see how it can become the solution and not the problem, while at the same time improving quality of life, generating new business opportunities. And where is this evidence? We know the UN IPCC report has said that there is a huge untap of potential and opportunity on the demand side measures, and we could reduce by 40–70% the emissions of green gases. Now, the key thing here in the report is that it's saying there are 3 key sectors that if we focus, we will make the biggest impact, and that's housing, mobility, and food. So that's the first thing. Now, for this year, I think we need to advance the progress we have made. And I will say, for me, what is very important is that we still need to address 2 barriers that we have. One is this misperception that lifestyles is about educating, providing information, awareness raising, and then magic wand, we are able to change our consumption, our lifestyles. No, we can't. We need to put the emphasis on providing the enabling conditions. What does it mean? The right market prices, the right regulatory framework, the infrastructure. And let me, Helena, quickly give an example. If I say, don't use your car, it's bad for air pollution and climate change. Well, yeah, but if I go walking, there's no pedestrian street, or if I go cycling, I'm gonna be crushed in the corner because there is not safe infrastructure. Or public transport is more expensive, or there is no urban planning. So those enabling conditions are important, and they are in the hands of government, business, academia, mass media, etc. So that's the first thing. The other one, often, when we say lifestyles, people think about elite. Oh, it's an elite, or is a premium, is the high income consumer that can really move to sustainable solutions. So again, and I celebrate the emphasis and the key messages that we are providing during this summit, that lifestyles have to be affordable and accessible for all. That's very important. And just as the minister said, they also need to bring the traditional knowledge. Bringing that knowledge is not only the scientific one. Then looking ahead on the global agenda very quickly, we have a great opportunity to have Brazil leading the COP30. Brazil is a champion in the agenda of sustainable consumption and production. It's also pushing for sustainable lifestyle. So I think there is when we can amplify already the messages that we have in the climate report. And again, my advice will be focus on those key sectors when we can do. Second, last year with the Global Biodiversity Framework, Article 1516 is talking about the importance of business to provide information on the sustainability or no sustainability of the products and to provide reliable information to consumers. So again, another agenda where you are very important then to move it forward and support the implementation. And the last one, UNEA, yes, we need to come with these solutions. As it has been mentioned, UNEA 7 will be advancing sustainable solutions for a resilient planet. And here, I think we need to come to this package of solutions. It's not only on citizens and consumers to change it, but we will need to work together on those enabling. So I stop here. Thank you so much.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, and for raising the sort of the reality for consumers when they can even afford some of the changes, and the various ways in which we need to think about a sectoral approach and break this down. It's actually quite relevant. We've got the results of the first poll where we asked in the audience, what do you think are the top priorities for you as an organization to work on in 2025. I wonder if we could see those now as an inspiration. And there we go. So what sustainable lifestyle transitions are you and your organization prioritizing in 2025? Very clearly, enabling access to healthy and sustainable diets are coming out very heavily. at the top of the agenda. And we all know within that 40 to 70%, the importance of the food system, a very complex system to change, but one where about over 90% of consumer advocates are engaged, followed by gender equity, then advancing circularity to tackle waste and pollution, clear information, and then energy initiatives there, with a strong quarter of the responses driving those changes. Very interesting. You can see the wealth of activity and focus that we have across the world. Consumer advocates are pulled in all directions and assist with understanding what is happening for consumers and protecting consumers on all of these topics and more. Samuel, might I come to you at this point as well to share your perspective? Hino Samuel Jose is the thematic focal point of the green economy and resources. He is, though, focused on the children and youth major group at UNEP. And Samuel, I'd love your perspective. So 2025, what would, for you, would be the best possible outcome? What are the key milestones? How would you like to see consumer organizations stepping in and collaborating? The floor is yours.
So thank you for the question, Helena. My name is Hino Samuel Jose. First, happy World Consumer Strikes Day. And thank you for CI, OPN, UNEP, and everyone on board for including youth in this panel. It's my honor to participate again as a speaker after moderating the Asia Regional Dialogue session that was held earlier this Tuesday. So the slide is actually relevant to my recent works, in which I will address it later in my remarks. So I think, I would like to bring it in a much more macro perspective, in which I think it's going to be very relevant as well to, for the consumers, rights agencies, and the consumers itself to stocktake. So sustainable lifestyle is an important driver of sustainable development, and behavioral change in the production and consumption are needed. And to ensure that planetary boundaries remain unharmed and respected, consumers must, of course, live responsibly and sustainably. So we at the Children and Youth Major Group, the UNEP, last year convened the Global Youth Environmental Assembly, and it produced a declaration. And it has been formally recognized as well by the member states at the 6th United Nations Environmental Assembly. And central to the declaration is an unwavering youth commitment to action that is not only environmentally sustainable, but also socially and economically equitable. Our declaration last year related to sustainable lifestyle highlighted that unsustainable consumption and production patterns are at the root of multiple social, political, and economic, as well as environmental crises, in which it directly impacts human well-being and health. And in turn, these unsustainable consumption patterns has at first impacts on land, water, and air degradation, especially to the increase of waste production and pollutants. In regards of sustainable lifestyle, we as youth advocate for mindful consumption and production based on efforts to eradicate poverty and hunger, promote behavioral change, and to effectively protect and efficiently manage the natural resources that we have in our ecosystem. For UNEAS 7, for instance, and for all stakeholders in here, we need to take note on the following. That first, UNEAS 7 will be the closing event of the year after a series of major global development and environmental agendas in the year 2025. And it will succeed the World Summit for Social Development, INC 5.2, as well as COP30, and the INC 5.2 of Plastic Treaty. As of now, we are in the waiting game, and we as youth actually look forward for the UNEAS 7 presidency to include a sustainable lifestyle again as part of the negotiation. I think in here we need three things. First, recognition of the triple planetary crisis as an immediate crisis, and therefore we have the opportunity to emphasize the need to live linear economy and move towards circularity and low carbon economy. Second, strengthening foresight, science policy interface, and bridging the science policy intervention in decision making. We need to enable science and policy contribution in bringing new innovations through science and creating enabling policies to make sure that the consumers have access to green products green entrepreneurs are also incentivized, and the solutions are affordable and provided equitably. And we need to also use foresight to understand future consumption trends from the current status quo or the current signals. And the third point will be strengthening stakeholder engagement. Obviously, youth engagement. And in UNIA 7, you know, as we are children and youth major group to UNEP, for UNIA 7 particularly, if I may leave a sponsor message, quote unquote, you know, we need to enable meaningful youth engagement. And also we stand ready as youth to work on a much more specific global frameworks to promote sustainable lifestyle that goes beyond normative discourses. And as my recommendation, I do advocate that sustainable lifestyle realization and solution should promote several things. 4 things to be exact. First, we need to integrate social justice and human rights principles into our lifestyle, into our sustainable lifestyle supporting policies. We need to promote decent work opportunities for young people working to advance sustainable products to our consumers, including the young people working in the waste management, energy efficiency, agriculture and food system, green transition, green startups. And we need these talents, and we cannot afford to lose these talents and have a brain drain in our green lifestyle sector. In regards of COP30, for example, I just returned from Bangkok, attending the United Nations Food System Summit +4, a regional preparatory meeting. I was attending actually in my personal capacity. But however, you know, we discussed there that now sustainable lifestyle, especially in food systems, you know, we need to promote the issue of sustainable lifestyle in food systems within our NDCs. This year, we'll be having the NDC 3.0 submission. And therefore, this will be an opportunity for us to increase more submission beyond energy-related NDCs. And lastly, the fourth recommendation is for this question that you posed to me. In the upcoming One Planet Network Sustainable Food System Conference in Brazil this May, in which CYMG UNEP, thanks to OPN as well and UNEP, we are serving as co-organizer. We as youth will continue to bring our advocacy and expertise. And we are advocating for, let's say, for example, nutritious meals for kids. We want to make sure not only that we provide them with nutritious meals, but also that the management of the supply chain of that nutritious meals are sustainable. And we need to promote the prevention of food loss and food resiliency, and protecting our smallholders, the farmers, the young people who are not the big players in the market. So I think that's all for the first question. Thank you very much.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much. In the many responses, but key one to everybody would be watch out for our next generation voices. Take that very much to heart. Many of them will be putting out their statements tomorrow. Absolutely, we need to be there incorporating those points. I love how you bring workers into this. We had Luc Triangle at the very start from the ITUC. That's essential if we're going to make this work. And thank you for flagging so many opportunities during the year ahead. You made me think of the plastics negotiation treaty, where actually we have had one of our next generation members from India representing that global consumer voice in the negotiations. So absolutely many opportunities there. We'll come back to you. I want to ask if anybody else on the panel can think of, in 2025, are there some key moments we should be looking to make sure that we are driving sustainable lifestyles and bringing in the consumer voice for that change? Lucy, I can see your hand up, please.
Thank you, Helen, and so delighted to join. Just briefly, Adriana and Samuel mentioned COP30, that is, in Brazil. But just to flag, I was really encouraged to read the COP presidency letter, because it really did a good job, I thought, of putting together the fact that action on climate change is about progress for humanity. So I won't read you the whole letter. I've been taking some excerpts of it for where I feel it is most useful for this work on sustainable lifestyles. But, you know, it's calling the brilliant minds and the brave individuals and the hard work and solidarity. And it talks a lot about these 4 fulcrums and levers. And to my mind, the Sustainable Lifestyles Just Transition for Sustainable Lifestyles is one of those high impact levers that can unlock so much. So I just wanted to touch on that.
Excellent intervention. Thank you so much. And of course, let me introduce you, even though we'll be calling you back. Lucy Shea is the Group CEO of Fruterra, and I'm looking forward to calling on you in just a second. Mindy, please join us as well. Mindy Hernandez is Director at the World Resources Institute. What should we be looking to in 2025?
Well, one of the things that we have been focusing on and recently wrote a paper on is the power of the NDCs to address behavior change. So across all behaviors, a powerful government tool is through their commitments. And recent research from us shows that the world's top emitters have historically overlooked behaviors with high emissions potential, specifically food-related behaviors and air travel. And so there's a real opportunity to focus on food, mobility, energy. One of the things that we see is that those the NDCs that we looked at specifically weren't addressing both upstream and downstream behaviors, which is obviously unfortunate because that's the perfect tool to deal with some of these upstream behaviors. So the recommitments will happen in 2025, and so that's a real opportunity.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And the Minister has also flagged the United Nations Oceans Conference and also the high-level panels in June. So we have all possible options to make progress fast and places where people are looking for interventions from consumer advocates. This is really fantastic. And as Consumers International, we work very hard to put those things together and bring the consumer voice whenever we possibly can. So please, for those members on the call, do reach out to us. I do want to shift the conversation a little bit now. We've talked about what is happening in terms of multilateral and intergovernmental conversation and key milestones during the year where decisions can be made and the playing field can be shifted. I want to turn now to the consumer advocates themselves and understand from the ground, from working with consumers day in, day out, how do they see the shift to sustainable lifestyles and making this work, making the potential for influencing policy, for changing the environment for consumers possible. So first, let me go to India. Anindita Mehta is the Chief Operating Officer at CERC. She is also a board member of Consumers International. Thank you for joining us at both the opening and the closing, Anindita. Let me ask you, and I know you're up to this very much, the hard question of, okay, how do we shift this so that consumer rights are heard and that we bring together people's rights in their role as consumers with this shift, that we create truly that just transition, because it's only with people that we will be able to make this a build and a growth story. Anindita, over to you.
Thank you, Helena, for having me over and giving me the opportunity to, this is a very passionate subject for me. So thank you for that. And it's very heartening to note that the UNEA 6 resolution has recognized the potential of behavior change that we've been talking about way back during our World Congress in December in Nairobi. If you remember, we had talked in depth about this, and very heartening to note that that the world over it has been recognized that the sustainable lifestyle in contributing to the achievement of the 3 dimensions of sustainable development, and it has taken note of the international, region and national initiatives, and that the successful national initiatives can serve as a model to be replicated in the entire globe. So the urgent action needed is now the collaboration among all stakeholders, all actors, to play their part to help achieve this transition, to help achieve this shift to sustainable lifestyles by integrating this into the policies, into the strategies and business practices, along with upholding the legitimate needs of consumers to make sustainable and healthy choices more affordable, accessible, and available for us all. So for that, the consumer voice needs to be integrated, strengthened in the international processes, national policy making, and business practices, which would require greater transparency, participation, and accountability. Governments should establish former consumer representations in policy making, ensuring that sustainability concerns are integrated into the regulations. Because, like you rightly said, we have to move along with the people. All the ensuring sustainability concerns are integrated into regulations such as eco-labeling, the right to repair laws, and product sustainability standards. And at the international platforms like the UNEA and COP30 also must amplify consumer perspectives by incorporating consumer advocacy groups into the negotiations and decision making processes. That's very, very important. The businesses also can foster consumer influence by engaging in participatory product design, offering clear and verified sustainability information that we've been talking about through this entire summit, and responding to consumer demand for ethical and eco-friendly products. Digital tools, social media campaigns, and citizen-led movements can further empower consumers to advocate for stronger regulations and hold corporations accountable. Ultimately, strengthening consumer voice requires a shift from passive consumption to active participation in shaping sustainable markets and policies. Uh, One thing I would like to add here is this is a very important year for us, because there are key opportunities at COP30 and very exciting UNEA 7 as well, where the theme again this year is advancing sustainable solutions for a resilient planet. Uh, and I mean, it was very heartening to note that in the last UNEA 6 in March 2024, Mission Life has been aligned to the resolution, and the member states have agreed to be part of it, and this needs to be a global movement, I would say. And COP30 and UNEA this year present significant opportunities to integrate sustainable lifestyles into the global climate and environmental policies. For example, at COP30 in Brazil, discussions on NDCs and just transition can incorporate that SCP strategies, sustainable and consumption production strategies, linking them to climate resilience and adaptation. Similarly, UNEA 7 in Nairobi can strengthen the One Planet Network's initiatives by promoting eco-labeling, green procurement, and consumer awareness programs. And both platforms can also support the expansion of UNEA Resolution 6 and also the Mission Life initiatives as a global model. We can that's one action I think is very important. Financing mechanisms and corporate engagement will also be crucial in scaling sustainable lifestyles, and COP30 can push for climate resilient funding models that support green entrepreneurship and sustainable businesses, particularly in developing nations. UNEA 7 can advocate for stronger policies on mandatory sustainability reporting and private sector commitments to circular economy principles. Just give me a few more couple of more minutes. I wanted to also bring in that both these events and countries can promote indigenous and community-led solutions by recognizing that traditional resource management practices and eco-friendly enterprises are the key, actually. And strengthening local entrepreneurship and sustainable production initiatives can help marginalized communities, vulnerable communities, transition more effectively towards climate-friendly economic models. I think that that is important, and public awareness and behavioral change campaigns should be central to these discussions. And global consumer movement promoting sustainable diets, mobility, and housing can be amplified through the UN-backed initiatives, and integrating sustainable lifestyles into the global stocktake under the Paris Agreement can help track progress in reducing consumption-related emissions. So I think, and of course, I had a entire paragraph on the on how NDCs could be integrated into the national environment strategies, but that has already been covered by my previous speaker. So I will stop here, and I think I've covered a part of it already. Thank
That
you.
was fantastic, Anindita. Thank you so much. And it shows both the commitment that you have to the issues and also the awareness of the opportunity at global level and how you make those things work all together. So thank you very much. I think that's a great lesson for all of us to hear. I'm going to come back to you as well, of course. I would like to hear some of those perspectives on how we might influence other aspects. Let me first, however, introduce and give a very warm welcome to Phil Radford. Phil has joined very recently Consumer Reports in the United States. He has a very long and illustrious career behind him as an activist and as an organization builder. One of his roles in the past was as, I believe, the youngest CEO for Greenpeace. And Phil started only a couple of weeks ago in his current role, and a very important role. Phil is also, I'm thrilled to say, on the board of Consumers International, and therefore playing a crucial role to guide and steer the organization here. Phil, a very warm welcome, and thrilled that this is your first meeting and conference with Consumers International, but we will be thrilled to have you on many, many more. I would love to perhaps hear from you your perspectives on how we can best help consumers as we meet their aspiration for a cleaner economy environment. How do consumers currently think about this? How are you thinking about that international environment as well, perhaps as a source of potential?
Excellent. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Helena, and Consumers International. It is a dynamic time. I think probably every time we have a conference, we say, wow, geopolitics are shifting or technology is moving more quickly. And once again, wow, geopolitics are really shifting and technology is moving much more quickly. It's really a privilege to, in a moment of such fragmentation globally, where one can point the finger at my country for a lot of it, to be here with such a powerful group of global leaders, because I think the only way that we help consumers is by working together strategically, both at the UN and international decision-making bodies, but also just bilaterally to help improve the conditions for consumers globally. So thank you for having me, and it's a real honor to be part of this community with you all. So I'd say the first thing is that I haven't met Anindita before, but I think we think very much alike. And so I won't repeat anything that she said, but I really appreciated all of those comments. And I'd just like to underscore the importance of everything that she said. We completely agree at Consumer Reports. I'd say a few things to complement it. I think the first, how are consumers, at least in the US, thinking about sustainability issues? I would say the number one way that they're thinking about sustainability issues is the durability of the products that they buy, right? If you think about consumers writ large, Consumer Reports has 5 million members, about 40% Republican, about 60% Democrat. And what people often care about from a sustainability perspective is how long will my product actually last, right? Which I think is a really important consideration, especially as we hear from our colleagues on small island nations, and just think about the pollution associated with and the energy associated with manufacturing these products. A second thing people often think about is, will I have money in my pocket? And a third thing people often think about is their health. and are there toxins in the product? Will it affect their health? Or how can they live a healthier lifestyle based on what they eat, what they wear, etc. So we work to really meet people where they are in what's in their hearts, what's in their day-to-day lives, to make when we talk about issues of sustainability related to consumers. From a global perspective, I think in terms of how we move forward, this is one of those moments when I was running Greenpeace, President Bush was in office and then President Obama was in office. The US was seen as a reliable partner, an unreliable partner, a reliable partner, an unreliable partner. I think many countries go through these different cycles, which makes it very challenging for us to work for stronger global rules that benefit the consumer and protect our environment. And I think the things that I've seen work really well, which I'm really proud of at Consumer Reports, is what is driving down cost is often not a large fund from the UN, but it's, for example, Germany with its energy policies driving down costs for solar. And then Chinese manufacturing with its scale and sophistication driving down the costs of solar, of batteries, of other technologies. And I think we are always looking at two curves when it comes to climate. One is just the curve of pollution that is terrifying, and the curve of temperature that is terrifying. And then one is the cost curve of the alternatives, where consumers can make a real choice to live their values, to save money, and to protect the planet. And I think that cost curve is crucial. And it has often been individual countries or groups of countries working together to either drive the manufacturing, have subsidies where electricity is the most expensive, and advocate for consumers to have affordability that drives down the cost for everybody. And so as we look at policy and what we can win, I think really thinking about the cost curve of alternatives matters, whether it's a global agreement or whether it's bilateral partnerships or whether it's our work in our individual countries or states, but thinking globally so that we can benefit all consumers globally. I think a second thing is obviously it's incredibly helpful when we're at the COP and we have companies on our side, right? And so a lot of what Consumer Reports does is we test products like many of you do. We then engage the companies to ask them to improve it. Several car companies have asked us to help them redesign their prototypes for cars that will hit the market in 5 years. We push companies to change policy. Once companies change their behavior, they want something uniform. We push states to change policies, and we continue to do that. So then companies say, we would love a national standard or a global standard. And so I think this kind of coordination between us globally can help to create a patchwork of regulation or leaders and laggards, where the leaders will join us all collectively in asking for a high standard that benefits consumers. And I think there's a great amount of progress that can be made there. You've seen NGOs in Brazil work with NGOs in the UK, work with NGOs in the US to push major brands to ask the cattle ranchers in Brazil to change their environmental policies. And when the major brands do that, that has enabled the Brazilian government to then pass a moratorium on destruction of rainforests for cattle ranching. And so I think there's a lot of room there for us to push companies on products, push them on their policies, and think globally and coordinate so that we can leverage that for really powerful policy at the national and global level.
I love that. I love that strategic and collaborative approach that works with the market and builds something very new. If I can put you on the spot, but as my board members and my bosses, you're going to be putting me on the spot as well. In 2025, is there an area you think could be most exciting and the greatest opportunity to focus in on?
I think the wind at our sails is that the cost of clean energy and storage is decreasing exponentially. And so when you have that on your side, there's the future, a greener future is inevitable. And the question is, how quickly do we make that inevitability happen? And how do we get barriers out of consumers' way. Helena, you mentioned the financing. How do we get things out of the way of the inevitable green revolution, at least on electricity, as quickly as possible to benefit consumers in an equitable way? And I think that opportunity and challenge will make a massive impact on many of the sectors that were listed earlier, like housing and mobility.
Fantastic. And I think I would encourage everyone to listen to the session, which was held, in fact, two, one with the International Energy Agency, who are hosting a global commission on people-centered energy towards COP30, and also a session where we heard from consumer advocates around the world with their solutions, things like one-stop shop, as well as pushing behind the scenes on the way in which affordability can be developed. Thank you very much, Phil. I would love to call now on Secretary General Wang Zhenyu. He is the chairman of the China Consumers Association, and it is wonderful to have you with us, Secretary General. Delighted to have your presence here. I would be thrilled to hear from you what you think the key opportunities are in 2025 to support consumers towards sustainable lifestyles, and where you think there may be opportunities at an international level as well as nationally. So the floor is yours.
Dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. High quality development is the primary task for China in fully building a modern socialist country. Sustainable lifestyle, including sustainable and green consumption, are important components driving high quality development. Article 38 of the Law of China, People's Republic of China, on the protection of consumers' rights and interests, entrusts the Consumer Association with the public's duty to provide the consumer with consumption information and conducting surveys, improve consumers' ability to safeguard their legitimate rights and interests, and guide the city with healthily resource-saving and environmentally friendly consumption patterns. Today, I will show the practice and the effectiveness of China Consumer Association from 4 aspects. Firstly, conducting the annual theme event of green consumption to popularize the concept of green consumption. As early as 2001, the Chinese Consumers Association launched a nationwide annual theme event on green consumption. Firstly, advocating that consumers choose green products that are uncontaminated or conducive to public health when making purchase. Secondly, emphasis proper waste disposal during the consumption process to avoid environmental pollution. Thirdly, guiding consumers to shift their consumption mid-side, focusing on environmental protection and resource conservation, while pursue a comfortable life, thus achieving sustainable consumption. This was one of the Chinese earliest large-scale events advocating green consumption, effectively popularized the concept of green consumption. Secondly, conducting target comfortability tests to rigorously promote green products. To better assist the consumers in distribution and selection green products, we organized comparative tests for various green and smart home appliances, such as water purifiers, refrigerators, dishwashers, air conditioners, and washing machines, focusing on consumer hotspots. This comparative test results provided consumers with practical consumption information, while also effectively alerting manufacturers and operators, yielding positive societal effects. Thirdly, widely participating in activities to resist food waste from 2020 to 2024. The China Consumers Association participated in activities to resist food waste. We joined initially with multiple industry associations to catering industry operators and consumers collaboratively driving efforts from both the supply and the demand sides. We encouraged catering industry operators to actively curb food waste within the industry and advocate for consumers to order and consume food reasonable. At the same time, we released consumption tips and short videos to promote the traditional Chinese virtue of diligence and thrift, striving to create an atmosphere that encourages thrift and opposites, with according to monitoring data in 2023, food waste at wedding and buffets decreased by 28% year-on-year. Firstly, initiated the completion of the green competition guide for Chinese consumers. Against the backdrop of rapid development in communication technology and AI, we are researching and compiling the green consumption guide for consumers to further promote green consumption and facilitate green development. The content of the green consumption guide for consumers plan to cover various life scenarios, such as clothing, food, housing, transportation, and unifies, catering to consumers' daily consumption needs. Consumers can quickly identify their consumption needs through this guide and practice personal green consumption. When we talk about consumption, we are essentially defining how humans interact with the planet. I look forward to working with colleagues to transform sustainable lifestyles from concepts into corrected action guides, elevating individual choice to the force of civilizational progress and jointly benefiting global consumers. Thank you all.
Secretary General, thank you so much for that comprehensive view of how you're approaching consumer protection in your country. I was particularly struck by the focus on not only on waste and making sure that consumers are aware, but also the way in which you provide information and robust tests to compare and contrast. Your focus on a range of different sectors, and your point that when we talk about consumption, we are essentially defining human interests. Thank you very much for joining us and those very thought-provoking comments. So you have heard from here consumer advocates and consumer protection experts. I'd love to reach out now to hear, well, how might we put this together? How do businesses think about this? How might we create with the landscape and our intentions and actions some points of connection and progress? I wonder if I could first call on Tana. Tana Sullivan is the Chief Sustainability Officer for GoTo in Indonesia. I believe you're based there, Tana. And
Yep,
of course,
that's right.
GoTo is a very significant platform and player and organization across the region and in the region. Tana's experience crosses sustainability in multiple aspects, and she is a brilliant thinker on how we might reach net zero and nature positive. Tana, as you listen to this and you think about your own corporate journey, what are the possible touch points? Do the things that you've heard from a consumer perspective resonate, and how might we work together on this?
Sure, Helena. I think, look, there's a couple things that come to mind as I was listening to the other speakers share their perspectives. And a lot of it is around, for us as a platform company, we have millions of users, both in Indonesia and across the region as well. On top of that, we also have millions of drivers, we have millions of merchants. And so we're kind of catering to a very diverse group, if you will, not just consumers, but also the general users of our app and our platform. So it's incredibly important for us to make sure that everything that we do is affordable and accessible. And that's really where I think our advantage comes in, because we have such scale that whatever we introduce in our platform and through our app will actually, has a really kind of meaningful impact from an environmental and a social standpoint. And so for us, it's about how do we design sustainability into kind of our platform's core experience? How do we make sure that it becomes eventually a default option for consumers? And we prioritize merchants, for example, that have sustainable packaging, for merchants that are, have carbon neutral deliveries and logistics, that are offering actual sustainable products and services themselves. And then, help kind of highlight them to consumers. So even just the idea is to facilitate and kind of help shift their behavior and make it as easy as possible and convenient as possible for them in app. And then by just kind of reaching that scale, I think what we've naturally seen over the last few years is that a lot of the pricing and the premiums, or what we used to call the green premiums associated with sustainable products and services, actually started to go down, just as you're getting more and more variety, more options for consumers from not just merchants, but obviously across the market. So it's been really, really incredible to see that happening, kind of all play out on our platform. We've also been very fortunate in building an ecosystem of partners and collaborators who have really credible kind of sustainable products and services to offer our consumers in the first place. And so it really makes our job easier because we end up becoming just a kind of platform, literally just facilitating the access, kind of like a gateway for our consumers to be able to make more sustainable choices. And then also using our platform as a vehicle for raising awareness overall, and it's not just about running campaigns. I think it's really about, okay, well, here's the issue. Here's the problem from an environmental perspective, or from a social perspective. And then here's the actual practical solutions you can take up right now in app, and making that really cost effective for them. And then leveraging data and technology. I mean, we're a tech company. And so being able to leverage data and technology to be able to do things like optimizing the services that we offer, providing more and more electric vehicle options, for example, making sure that the routing is as efficient as possible and that the carbon emissions emitted from each, transport, food, whatever order happening on our platform is actually as low as possible from a carbon perspective. I think that's really it in a nutshell, Helena, but I'm happy to go into more detail.
So if you were asked tomorrow to double the speed at which you could take action, what would it take?
Look, for us, it would be, for me personally, it would be great to see the whole industry kind of do this, that there would be real kind of standards applied to this. So it's not just us, I guess, performing well or doing well when it comes to sustainability and what we have, integrated and introduced for our consumers, but rather it would be an industry-wide effort. And in fact, it would eventually end up being standardized. And as you know, and as many of the other panelists may also know, regulation is really kind of the key part of that, right? Because then you're pushing all of the industry players to be able to offer consumers the same. Indonesia is still considered an emerging market, and so consumers are highly price sensitive. And so I think we always have to design every solution, every product, every service with that in mind. And it can make it really, really tough, especially for some of the upstream manufacturers and suppliers of sustainable products here in this market. Because unfortunately, they still have to have a premium to be able to survive as companies and as businesses themselves.
Turn myself off just at the key moment. This is a great response because, of course, those who are consumer advocates in this call, many of them do get involved in the standard setting. And so leaning into that and finding the right standards to push for. And of course, then they would argue the enforcement of those standards and policies as well needs to be live. Mindy, may I come to you now? So Mindy Hernandez is the director for the Living Lab for Equitable Climate Action at the World Resources Institute, which I'm sure everybody knows very well. But help us understand, what is the Living Lab and what opportunities do you see for this group that want to move forward together? How would you have us move faster?
Thank you. And thank you for this great session. And it's wonderful to be here with other thinkers and having this positive idea of what is possible. I really like that frame. So the Living Lab for Equitable Climate Action is essentially the research and design lab inside of WRI with a focus on behavioral science. And one of the things that we are working on, we're about to publish a paper April 8th, which is someone early in the panel mentioned the IPCC estimation that comprehensive behavior changes can reduce global emissions by 40 to 70%. And what we wanted to do is understand that comprehensive is kind of a pie, right? And one slice of it, as the IPCC notes, is changes by technology, the enabling conditions, as many people have talked about. And another piece of the pie is just the choices that you and I make every day. And I think our research really vibes with the comments from Adriana, that what we sort of found the quantifiable argument for it's really going to take both systems and individuals to meet the climate crisis. So what we do is we quantify what part of that 40 to 70% is just individual change. So in other words, if I've told everybody on this call to take a bike, but I haven't done anything to change bike lanes, what what is, the projected emissions reduction that we can expect. And what we find is that while projected emissions from behavior changes in energy, transport, and food could essentially wipe out the per capita footprint of the average global citizen, when you look at the slice that's available, if we just look at individual change and systems do nothing to enable those conditions, we find 10% of projected emissions is possible. And I was frankly, as a behavioral scientist, I was somewhat surprised by how small that result was. But what it speaks to is, I think, what lots of folks have spoken to on the call, which is that individuals cannot do this alone. We really need the enabling conditions of industry, regulation, policy to help make these behaviors accessible and affordable and easy for everybody. So what would we do? I think that what we are trying to say as we start to talk about this report is not that individual change doesn't matter, but that it matters in a way that is different than what we've been told. It's not just if we choose a paper straw over something else, right? It's how we vote. I'm an American. I am now living in the consequences of my fellow citizens' actions. And it has to do with the pressure, Consumer Reports, Greenpeace, the work that was done, putting pressure on companies like KitKat to change their sourcing of palm oil. That kind of citizen power is something that we need to really pull the leverage on, as well as the way that we vote and the way that we pressure both local and national leaders. And so what we would want is really to change the framing of individual behavior change from thinking through what do you do in your home to how do you act and pressure the systems around you. So I'll stop there.
I think you'll have many consumer advocates on the line cheering, because that's exactly what consumer advocacy does. And, in history, there have been a couple of moments where that has been really important. At the very start, if you look at the 1900s, when, our systems were starting to grow, you had some very powerful consumer advocacy in the US and some parts of Europe. As you got into the sort of marketing and information revolution in the 40s and 50s, you see that spreading around the world. I think it's in that time where we need to put all of that together, and consumer organizations have a powerful and important role to play, which is why we're here.
Yes.
It's an interesting time for those where and how we come together. We'll come back to some of the other consumer advocates on their reactions to that point. First, I'd love to come to Lucy. Lucy Shea is, of course, the group CEO of Futerra. Lucy, if you're there, as you've listened to this, help us round out this first part, and then I'll open up to the floor for a couple of reactions and thoughts. We've heard a whole story of sort of, we've got a set of milestones and opportunities this year. We've got a set of consumers who are ready to shift. We've got a potential set of solutions. And as Mindy pointed out, those things all matter. 10% still matters. All of that needs to come together. How, as you think about that and making it resonate, how might we bring it all together? Lucy.
Thanks, Helena, and thank you again. And just to say, so delighted to be on this panel. And I've actually been scribbling notes as we go, because I found the perspective of the panel just so fantastic. Like Phil said, I've been kind of double clicking and agreeing and nodding away. And so if I actually starting for Mindy, I can't wait to read that report. And the 10% is actually higher than I thought it would be, because I think previously IPCC had said it might only be kind of around 5% for individuals. So that is, for me, a good news story. And actually, if you put it in context of some of the sectors that we talk about a lot, like aviation, IPCC tells us it's 2% to 3% aviation. So still an enormous piece of the pie to go after. in terms of it resonating, I might just tell a short story. I've been working in sustainability for over 20 years. I know a fair bit about the science. I have learned a bit about some of the policy around this today. So again, thank you for the panelists on this. And I know quite a lot about how to shift consumer behaviour. But even so, I noted in my own life, when I was on my second mat leave, maternity leave, I was off, I was kind of not paying attention to anything in kind of professional world. And I noticed that the world around me, I live in the UK, I live in Southeast London, had gone absolutely crazy for getting rid of single-use plastic, because through various shows, TV, culture, etc., this had lit up the kind of public discourse and imagination. And even though I knew all the facts, I was actually still using my plastic water bottle, single use, a lot. So I share this as my guilty secret. But to say I changed my behaviour when the behaviour around me changed, and when my neighbours were talking about it, and kind of the mums in the and dads in the various kind of kids groups were talking about it. So that was one of the moments in my life or professional career. It's like, oh my goodness, this is actually how change happens, is when culture shifts around us. And just to then go up a context level, that piece around consumer organisations calling for change, I've also seen that in my career. We work a lot with businesses in terms of sustainability strategies, and to see how, from a materiality perspective, again, using that example of single-use plastics, you could write a sustainability strategy 10 years ago that didn't have single-use plastics in it, because of the embedded carbon of using plastic is actually, if it's protecting food, it's actually for climate, often quite a good thing. But for microplastics and general us all having to deal with the waste, a terrible thing. So I've seen, both in my personal life and as CEO working with kind of Fortune 500 companies, just how crucial this consumer and citizen push can be. And then I guess the piece I would love to share, if I may, is the how. So when we look, and as we've heard, there's so many barriers in consumers' way. And what I've heard so many times in the past is like, oh, well, consumers say they care, but then they don't actually put their hand in their pocket, or they don't actually follow through at the till. And I just would like to spend a moment on saying that is such a myth, and such a kind of a false path that we've gone down over the years. You hear about this value action gap, and actually it's not. It's almost it all gets pushed onto consumers as if like, oh, well, morally, oh, someone's lying. And actually what you see, what's going on, is that we've got these enormous barriers in people's way. Lots of them mentioned on the call today, but some others as well, like embarrassment or shame. I don't know how this new thing works. And one of the things that we found over the years, that's in addition to the enabling policies, regulatory infrastructure, etc., where there's the ability for change to happen, focusing in on the benefits. So I thought it was notable that Phil talked about, for example, durability is top on his set of consumers, straddling, Republican and Democrats. There's a big consumer benefit embedded in that. In the Slido, consumer associations are looking at diet. There's such, again, from a kind of planetary and a personal health benefits embedded in that. And one of the things we found is that, again, learning from the business community, there's a tried and tested way of selling these benefits, and they are functional, emotional, and social. So functional are things such as saving money, but also saving time, or literally being warmer or colder. Emotional is things that make you feel good. as the minister started out, that consumption can give us often a feeling of pleasure and fulfillment. So being able to promote, find the areas of pleasure and fulfillment from the sustainable lifestyle or sustainable version, if you like. And then social. So how does this alternative or sustainable lifestyle make us look good in the eyes of others, and or give us a sense of community and belonging? And there, I'll stop there to pass back to other panelists.
Thank you so much. I do note that Samuel has his hand up. Would you like to react?
Yeah, but if you have if you are going to ask me a question, I would like to hear it from you also. Well, okay. So, but maybe I would like to add, maybe this will be my second intervention, I think, in this panel. I would like to, I can say I'm pretty much inspired as well, but I would like to mention one thing. When we are measuring the success of achieving sustainable lifestyle in our people, in our community, in our country, we need to go beyond GDP. We need to go beyond the economic indicators. We need to ensure that we are not only achieving sustainable economy, but maybe, if I can mention, caring, decent, and right-driven sustainable lifestyle, you know. So I think we can learn as well, let's say, from the OECD countries regarding this case. But maybe I would like to bring three things, maybe, because maybe if you ask me, the next question will be about what are the youth perspective then? Three things, maybe. First,
if you could briefly, that would be great.
Oh, sure.
We have to land this in about 10 minutes, and I would love to hear from others.
Sure. I think first thing will be family, children, and youth well-being are the foundations of our sustainable lifestyle. And we need to ensure that all factors that hinder population in achieving sustainable lifestyle are addressed. Second will be, we need to develop a harmonious standard. We need to develop a standard that is measuring the success not only based on GDP or mere economic indicators. And the last point, to be brief, and of course, I hate to mention this, but I don't want to corner this actor, but business are the key. Business actors are the key to manage the impact on sustainability, well-being, and promote this caring and right-driven sustainable lifestyle. So that's why I think, again, that will be my response as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Samuel. And yeah, I want to go back to Tana's point that for her, if she said, you know, I'm putting her very much on the spot, to go twice as fast, she needs regulators. And if you ask regulators, they need the public support to make the change. So by the time we all need to look at each other and hold hands a little bit, although that sounds very, very a little bit positive there, but you know, collectively we do need to work together. And each put in our respective strengths and abilities to this. We're going to land this session in the next 8 minutes, so that's not a lot of time, but I would love, if we can, to hear perhaps your perspectives to the audience and in general on what is the thing that you think is essential for World Consumer Rights Day. March 15th. Is a day when we celebrate and recognize that consumers everywhere do have rights. Your persona as an actor in the economy is one that is really important. What, under the theme of a just transition for sustainable lifestyle, will you do? Or what is the call that you would make to the consumer advocates on the panel here today? I would love to start with Minister Clarke, if she is able to come back on the line.
Certainly. I think I have a very simple call, but it's a global call, and that's around plastic pollution. For St. Kitts and Nevis, we are about to ban single-use plastic bags on the 31st of March. And we just welcome everyone to just say no to plastics and transition to canvas bags or alternative options just to protect the environment. That's my call.
Wonderful. Thank you very much indeed. Could we then go to, actually, I'm going to go to Adriana. Your sound is not working, Adriana.
Can you hear me now? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, really difficult to say because we have heard so many things, very interesting. I will say, first, consumers' right is linked to the right for a clean environment. And right for clean environment is right to reliable information and affordable solutions. So that's the first thing. And the second, really, I just want to emphasize and the need to change the narrative. I really like what Lucy and Mindy have said. So yes, we need to focus on the co-benefits, the benefits for that. Sadly, we have seen the main driver for people is not often the environment, but we saw it in the poll is health, healthy diet. So is health, as you mentioned, is the functionality of the things, the time you save, the emotional, and then the other thing, consumption gives us belongingness, and that's so important. So that, and Mindy, I really like, and I think our messages resonate. We need to focus on the system provisions or that infrastructure that will enable to act. And just to say, I've been working many years with Lucy. Lucy, we started working on the mass media. So we haven't talked about this. It's very important that mass media and social media help us in this new narrative. Because Lucy, you and I started 20 years ago working on this. We didn't have the internet, the social media so strong. And we know that most of the people are getting information from the social media, and often it's not going to the direction we want to go, those key messages. So I think we haven't talked about it, but that's also very important. So many things I know, but these four messages are key. Thank you.
I'm going to rejig the order a little bit. Tana, can I come to you? What's your own approach for World Consumer Rights Day, or the call you would make?
Look, I think from a company perspective, from the private sector, I think understanding that as individuals, there's, the two biggest roles that we have are is our civic participation, so how we vote, and then how we consume. So essentially making sure that our consumers have access to the right information. I think a few other speakers have mentioned this. Information is power. And what we've seen in our experience is that when we provide those actionable solutions, when we provide those options on our platform, at least, consumers will go that way. They will choose that. Whether even if there is a slight premium, they will still choose it because they understand and they can see it. I mean, it's transparent. They can see the impacts that they're having. And we make sure that we disclose all those metrics for every individual that we have on our using our sustainable products and services in app. So I think that's incredibly important. Knowledge is power in this case.
Thank you, Mindy.
Thank you. I think echoing what folks have said, especially Adriana, I think that I would push people to do, I'm sure everyone on this call is already doing it, but to hold two thoughts in your head at the same time, which is that we have power as individuals, but also we need systems and enabling solutions, and we need to push for that and to identify the false narrative that we have been fed, that solely individuals can make this change. And I think we need to call that out and call it what it is, which is a corporate sleight of hand, and say that, no, we need corporations and policies to also build these enabling solutions and just reject the false narrative.
Perfect. Lucy, coming back to you.
Thank you. I would call the thing that I've heard today, which I've really loved, is the buddying up to affect standards. I think it's absolutely core. And I think that sustainable lifestyles is often devalued. I don't know whether it's a sexist thing, whether it's seen that, I saw in some of your earlier sessions, this was called out already, that women are often the primary decision makers around purchasing, so it gets devalued. But some buddying up around putting consumer rights at the heart of sustainable lifestyles, I think, and for there to be a conveyor belt through to ISO, all the ones that we mentioned already, I think is something that together we could work on.
Samuel, coming back to you briefly, your call to the group. I know, because I want the consumer advocates to have the last word.
I think we need a proactive ecosystem, not only responsive one, but a proactive one to achieve sustainable lifestyle. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Secretary General, would you like to make a brief call to the audience for World Consumer Rights Day? Understood. You may want to come back and we'd be happy to share that after the call with participants. No, you've come off.
Oh, no, thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Anindita, your call to consumer advocates around the world.
So this WCRD, I would like to mobilize and with massive outreach, individuals and communities, and inform consumers how they can, on low cost, high impact ways in which they can access more sustainable choices. And I think the way forward should be a three-pronged approach. First, by nudging individuals or to practice simple, effective, environment-friendly actions. That could be the demand phase, where consumers would be demanding more of eco-friendly products. Second would be by enabling industries and markets to respond to that demand. So that should be the second supply phase. And the third should, of course, be influencing the governments for supportive infrastructure and industrial policy support for consumers. I think that should be the approach, three-pronged approach. And this is the advocacy that I would like to carry forward this WCRD.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And Phil, in your first Consumers International event, you're having the last word. So tell us what we can take away for March 15th and beyond.
My personal commitment is to read Mindy's paper. And I think the reason is, I think our call to action is that consumers are taking action, right? Consumers are doing their part. And now we need consumers to call on governments and corporations to do their part.
Wonderful. Well, with that, you have been fantastic panelists, really inspiring interventions, and the collective story from this is one that is incredibly powerful. Thank you so much for having joined us here to share and to help us explore what we might work on together in 2025 and beyond. With that, all that remains is for me to wish you a very happy World Consumer Rights Day. And let's work together for a fair, safe, and sustainable economy where we go together through a fast, fair, and accountable transition. Thank you. Stay safe, stay well, and see you soon.
Thank you,
everyone.